Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today we're going to be tackling the Upcrate battle for the March Upcrate, which is Colourless Beauty. As most of you probably picked up on, I was really happy with this box. I said in the unboxing video, doing a graphite subscription box is a really risky thing to do just because people generally don't find it that exciting. I however find it exciting because I love drawing in graphite and this is a perfect time for me to actually really enjoy one of these challenges. So I have here, this is a sheet of paper from the little pad that we got in the Upcrate. You can see there's the perforations there because it was a stitched pad. It's just easier for me to work with not having the spine of the book in at my hand. So I've just taken a sheet out for this. And today we are going to draw a definite beauty, and I'm sure you'll agree. This is Inka. She is a 10-week-old Rottweiler pup, and doesn't she just have the most adorable face? I wanted to draw her face. Now we are only going to draw like down to where her collar is for a couple of reasons. I wanted to do that though because she's got quite a lot of different values without being too complicated. And the main thing that's going to be an issue for me here is time constraints. I can spend anything between sort of like 5 and 30 hours on a graphite drawing, so we're going to have to try and speed this up a little bit, otherwise you guys will never see this video. So I've got here the pencils that came in the box, but what I've also done is I have desaturated the picture of Inka, so I've taken out a lot of the colour and it's to help see the values better. If you ever want to try drawing in graphite, it's a brilliant idea to take your reference photograph and put it into black and white because it really shows you all the midtones and where they are in relation to the darkest and the lightest areas of the picture. So we're going to try and deal with that, but I'm going to blow it up slightly because if I was just to replicate this grid exactly on this paper, then she's going to be this size in the middle of this massive sheet of paper. And for this I am using the 2H pencil. I don't want to bang on about the grid method because that's not really what this video is about, but as you become more adept with it, you make your squares bigger and bigger, therefore, you know, you're sort of using the training wheels less. Some people say that the grid method doesn't teach you anything, and I disagree with that entirely. If you go on that principle, like maybe when you do your first drawing, if you start with like 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre squares, and then gradually you enlarge those squares and the number of squares lessens and you're adding more detail freehand within each of those squares until at the point where, normally if I'm doing a dog portrait, now if I'm doing a commission, I usually split the drawing into quarters and that's enough, and it's just to get the placement of the eyes and things so that I know it's absolutely spot on. So we'll start with part of her head and we'll just get this head shape down. Now what's interesting here though, even though this is the 4th square in our grid, the centre line of the dog's face is actually here. So it's off centre on our grid. But that's always a really good reference point as well, even if you don't want to use the grid method. If you take your photograph and you draw a centre line through directly in between the nostrils, which will align with the little part of their lip that goes down and joins their mouth. There's a split there in a dog's mouth. And if you draw a line straight through that, that gives you a really good centre line, which again is a really good point of reference if you don't fancy the grid method. So the middle of our head, the middle point of our head is actually here. So again, if I follow this centre line down, it's kind of an imaginary line, but this is where our little mouth's going to come across. And that's worked out quite well as well. So far so good. And she's got a sort of little pattern that comes off around here, so I'll just pencil that in very lightly as well. And then she's got this cute little mark over her nose, so again I'm just going to indicate that with a pencil line. I'm not going to do anything crazy with it just now. And then we've got her nose, and her nose takes up most of this area here. And then down the sides of her face here, where her whiskers are, like her, they're not really her cheeks, they're kind of her cheeks I suppose. But again, I'd just like to indicate where the markings start. And this is going to come down and joins up roughly here. So in terms of grid use, that's me. I'm pretty much done with my grid now. As I say, it's just for specific placement. And now what I tend to do is just work from the actual photograph if I am working from a reference photo. Okay, so I've taken away the outside grid lines and it's just less basically for me to mash across the paper. So the first thing that I like to do is spend a little bit of time on the eyes. Okay, so take the 2B and we'll start working on this eye a little bit more now that I've got the rough shape of the pupil. Now that is subject to change. Now she does have quite a... Oh, I need to sharpen this. Where's my James Bond sharpener? Oh, here it's here. Okay, so with the 2B, the first thing that weirdly, and it helps to get the shape of the eye, is actually the top eyelid. And Inca has quite a characteristic little hump there, which I didn't notice before. And this is why observation's so important. So just with a light hand just now and this 2B pencil, I just want to start to work in this top eyelid area. And then she's got this little cute bit that comes out like this and it's quite dark. So really what I'm doing here is like just mapping out the darkest areas of her eyes. So I've penciled in some of the darker areas down the side of her face here, and I've paid particular attention to her markings and the way the light's hitting her face. And when it comes to nostrils, which is another dark area I like to put in first, in the picture her nostrils aren't clearly defined because of the way the light's hitting her nose. So it's better to start from the middle and sort of work your way out and just get the shape of the shadow rather than the shape of the actual nostril. Talking about nostrils. Goodness me. Because where the nostril hole is, this is ridiculous, it comes up and out in a curve, so usually the way the light hits it, it's actually very gradual rather than being able to see a nostril hole. So she is going to look like a little bit of a monstrosity for a wee while. Obviously her eyes look freakishly vacant at the moment as well, and it's kind of the equivalent to, you know, your drawn go through that ugly stage. You kind of make the puppy look ugly for a little while. But you have to persevere with that and don't panic. And that was something that, you know, that took me a little while. I was like, oh, this doesn't look anything like this dog. And it's really not going to look anything like the dog until you're almost finished. And it's back to the same old thing. You just have to have a bit of faith in your own process. And if something's not right, keep walking away and coming back to it. And eventually you will be able to see where the flaw is or where the problem is. Okay, so just carrying on now, still with the 2B. I'm just putting in this area that's of darker fur that's beside her eye and round like past this little eyebrow. I'm just going to take out this section here. Because I feel that's too harsh a line. And we're going to shade in some of her lip now. Now this is going to be fairly solid because it's actual skin, it's not fur. So I'm just going to use my pencil on its side here. Just to keep that looking a bit smoother. Okay, so now we're going down to 4B. And again, we'll just start with these darker areas. And work on our little eyebrow. So again, back to 2B. And then for this iris area, it's still quite dark, but it's not as dark as our other pencil. So if I go very lightly with the 2B to begin with, and this is the lightest area in here. Now this is where we can really start to darken down the areas. So around the outside of the iris, there is this darker part here. So using my 4B now. So I just want to finish off this right ear, or her right hand side as we were looking at it, but her left ear. So what I want now is the lightest parts of her ear I want to be in the 2B. So you can see the parts that I've left blank are the lightest parts of her ears. So if I just start in with this and fill in the gaps, so to speak. And then we can start working with our darker pencil. So it's mostly going to be the 4B because the 8B is going to be a bit harsh for some of these areas. Now one of the things about doing this is you always want to keep your pencil sharp because you're drawing dog hair. And we just build this up so gradually. And then I can go back to my 2B. Now I need to smooth this out a little bit because I've made her ears look really hairy. You know, like a much hairier breed of dog, and obviously Rotties are smooth coated, so that's quite important that we do a bit of smoothing out here. So as I fill in this lighter area, so this is, her fur on her head is still black, but the way the light's hitting it, it looks much, much lighter. So although I'm just filling this in with the 2B pencil, I'm still following the direction that the fur would grow in, which gets really awkward around the corner of the eyes. It kind of like all comes to, you know, comes to together. But it's just in case if there's any sort of accidental texture left over, then it's kind of going in the right direction. This kind of starts to come down like this. And she's got this little paler patch in here as well. And this doesn't actually have a lot to do with drawing skills per se. This is more about, when you're doing shading like this, it's more about identifying the shapes that the shadows and the light parts make. You know, so like this is in a curve here. Now round her eye, she's got these tan parts. So I'm going to leave that as the white of the paper for now. So I'm at the point now where I've built up a section of the drawing and I've really mapped out where the dark, the mid-tones and the light tones should be. So what I tend to do from this point is I start moving over the picture, but I keep going I keep going back and making my darker parts darker as I go, till the point where the entire drawing's at the right saturation. Now you want to be absolutely sure before you go in with this 8B, because when you get to the 8B stage, it's very, very difficult to erase that. So I wouldn't recommend going for that until you're absolutely 100% sure that you've got everything where you want it. I would say good practice is generally to leave it to the end anyway, just because smudginess. Yeah. Okay, now this bit's tricky because she's got this dark patch here, which I would say is definitely into 4B territory. And then she's got this little eyebrow bit up around here that we talked about. One thing I will say for these supplies is, see with the pencils, I know they're colour coded at the ends, but this is very confusing. If I was doing this out with an art challenge, I would have different brands of pencil in the different grades. So I'd have maybe like a Faber-Castell 8B, and then my 4B would be a Derwent, and then I could have a Viking 2B. And just at a glance, it would be very easy to jump between them without having to double check to make sure you've not lifted the wrong pencil. Again, just a process for me personally, because these drawings take forever. And you want to, if you can do anything to speed up that process and make your life easier, you're going to do it. Right, I'm just taking away the little line here that I left for our little tan streak, because that was just a guideline. And I'm going to start trying to work round about that now, because this is just not going to be the easiest thing to do. So again, just identifying some of the darker parts of her nostril, which will most likely be the nostril hole, as previously discussed. So that's going to start to take shape as well, very slowly and very gradually. Nostril holes, oh my. So this is me into the second sitting of working our little friend Inca here. And today I'm going to be working slightly more over now that I've got quite a lot of detail on this side. And then the final sitting will be darkening down all my shading and getting it looking just right so that it really looks like her. Line my pencils up again. Back down here to the nose again. I'm just going to do a little bit more here. Now I really want to darken down like the parts beside her mouth, because they're very like expressive, like they are quite a large part of her sort of cheeky little face. So I want to sort of really sort of like micro focus on these. Just for a moment, because it almost looks like she's got like a little half smile on the go. That's better, because, well, Rotties obviously are, they're quite kind of, not jowly, that's the wrong phrase, but they do have quite a prominent lip line. So I'm going to go back to my 2B. She's got a little highlight on her top lip here, but it is so very, very subtle. And again, the texture of the lip is actually quite smooth. So we want to sort of try and deal with that as much as we can. Now she's got a very distinct line in it. It's almost up at her jaw. And then the hair starts cutting in. Now she does have, I don't think it's quite 8B level, but she does have a little dark patch under here, and I'm wondering if it's a dark patch of fur. And it actually like draws out the shape of her chin a little bit. If I ever get to meet her in person, I'm going to have to find out. That'll be the first thing I do. I'll probably cuddle her and then lift her chin up so I can see underneath. And again, I think what I'll do is, I see there is a very sort of distinct, she's almost got like a little halo round the bottom of her chin there. So if I just lightly mark in this shadow, then when it comes to actually finishing off her shading, then we kind of know where we're going already, which is great. At the moment, she doesn't much look like a Rottweiler, like she really doesn't. I do find though that if you, especially with puppies, if they don't have something that's very characteristic of the breed, like Inca's got these little eyebrow patches, sometimes it can be difficult to tell what breed they actually are. And a few people have asked me when they've seen the picture, they know that she's a Rottweiler, but they've asked, is she a Rottweiler, instead of saying, oh, you know, that's a cute Rottweiler. And I think it's just because all their features aren't fully developed. You know, they've all got these little sort of snub noses, and it was the same, like even when collies are pups, they could be like one of several breeds. So it's very, very important, I'm digressing, it's very, very important that we get these little eyebrow markings absolutely perfect, because that is the thing that makes her look like the breed that she is. And right now they're not that prominent because I haven't finished with the shading, so I feel that it will come together a little bit better. That and the highlights in the eyes will probably be the two things that will make her look a little bit more like she's supposed to look. She's got some pretty wild tufts going on here. Now she is at a slight angle, you know, she's not facing dead on to the camera, so this section of eyelid is much, much heavier. Made a mistake. She does have two little highlights around this area, so I'm going to try not to heavy them in just so that it's easier for us. Oh wow, it's like the definition. I love it when I've got cute dogs to draw. And I'm just going to slope in a little bit of the 2B here for our iris just now. I don't want to put in too much because I'm going to have to darken down her eye, but I want to see the rest of this mapped in before I absolutely commit this eye to make sure that I've got it right. I think I have got it right just looking at it. It is nice to have the rest of the drawing to compare it to, and again, do what I was talking about yesterday and get up and walk away, come back in 20 minutes and, you know, make sure you had your eye in right kind of thing. Okay, right, so back to 2B, and we're going to work around this eye now. See, this is like crucial. The eyes are crucial. You can use a little bit of artistic license elsewhere. When it comes to the eyes, they have to be correct. Now, where I've put in this little dark bit, this actually joins up to her eye, just where those highlights are, so like there. So like this side, this is the dark section here. And again, she's got this seam where the ear starts to, you know, to sort of curl round, because obviously their ears aren't flat as a pancake. So this is like the edge of her ear, because this section underneath her neck needs to be, as you know, as dark as we can get it, more or less. So you can see what I'm going for there. And again, really probably really helpful for this area under her chin, for, you know, for creating these sort of little tufty underbib. Wow, I'm just making words up now, this is great. But yeah, the mechanical pencil might be really helpful for this. So again, the dark areas that I've already indicated, they're a great place to start. And again, she's got these tiny little wispy hairs. I feel like they're really important. Right, so we're going to try and get finished up today and get this little lady all done and dusted. So this is my third sitting with this drawing, and we're just going to crack on and get her to where she needs to be. So I'm going back in with an 8B, and we're going to start working away now. Now this really is where the work is, and this is what takes the time, but this is also the part of the process that makes the drawing look like the actual animal. So, and quite often I find when I'm doing these, if I'm doing a commission, a pet portrait, I tend to get to the stage that we've gotten to and then I walk away for like a couple of days, because when we get to this stage we want to have absolute full concentration and full commitment. You know, you don't want to be doing this part of it when you're kind of like not really feeling it, because this is by far the most important part. So I just want to work away here on the darkest sections first. So it's important when we're doing this dark part down the bottom, it's really important that we keep our pencil sharp, and because we're using the 8B, then it's going to blunt really quickly. So as I'm working my way around, it's important that I just remember to keep sharpening, because we want these finer lines where it cuts into her, like where her little bib part is here, and we don't want that getting lost because we've got a blunt pencil. So when I've just sharpened it like this, I'm going round and doing these areas where it is actually cutting into her bib, and as the pencil starts to get a little bit more blunt, I can work on these more solid sections. And she does have this slightly darker patch here, but it's so subtle, and again it might just be the light. As I said, I haven't met this wee pup, so I'm not entirely sure. And I think I said this maybe in the first sitting that I was doing, I do find it a lot easier when I have, when I've actually met the dog. I don't know, just because you can see the way that they move about and, you know, that kind of thing. I'll just grab my 8B again. And the same as this side, she's got these slightly darker parts, just where it cuts into her little eyebrow patches. I'm sure there is like a proper name for those, but I just don't know what they are. Yeah, in the areas where things are lighter, I'm just very, very gently putting a wee layer of the 2B down. I don't want to take away from those areas because I want the contrast, but I also don't want to end up taking it too far so that I lose the highlights and things. And it's something, this is very characteristic of my style. When I am drawing these dogs, I do tend to exaggerate the contrast, almost as if the other photograph of the dog has been taken with the exposure up a bit too high. Okay, I suppose we should work on her chinny chin chin a little bit here. So she's got this bottom lip, which I am just absolutely in love with. So I've just been darkening that down very gradually as we've been going along. Okay, I'm going to go back up to this little eyebrow spot here. That's better. So you can see with the addition of the eyebrows, she's definitely looking a lot more rotty than she was half an hour ago. And then she's got this nice soft part around her eye as well. And again, I want to keep like a little soft fuzziness to her, not so that she looks long-haired, but just to keep that nice sort of soft puppy-esque feel to her. And again, I can take my 2B now and colour in her iris area. And then I can take my 8B and I can really start to define, that's not helpful, I really start to define her pupil on this side. And I'm just softening up all my pencil strokes. This is the 2H that I'm using. You can see you're still getting the texture of the fur and all those little marks that I've made, but it's just a case of kind of smoothing them out a bit and, you know, bringing everything together a little bit more. This is still quite stark here, so just want to darken in some of our wee whisker areas here. This one almost joins up. So now this is a moment of truth. So I'm going to take my jelly roll here and just make sure that it's working. The placement of the highlights in the eyes are so important. Like they really, I cannot stress enough how important these highlights are, because it just, I don't know what it is, but it just makes the picture what it's supposed to be. And I have a feeling that this pen is going to let me down. Something chronic. And I would be absolutely right. I can't even get a couple of dots in. And I was going to put a little mark in at her, like her waterline. So there we go, I've managed that. Because she's got a couple of little shiny bits Obviously it's a mucous membrane, the eye. I always think that's such a horrible phrase, mucous membrane. Scientific talk for the wet bits. Yeah, so I'm getting nowhere fast on top of my 8B pencil, which we kind of talked about in the unboxing. So one is going to have to resort to sensible measures here. See what I mean? Makes all the difference, like it really, really does. Okay guys, I've been away and I'm back, and I think I'm going to stop here for considering this isn't for any specific reason other than doing the Upcrate battle. That is my finished picture of Inca. So for basically what is for me a very short and quick graphite drawing, I'm absolutely delighted I got to do this for an Upcrate battle. It's really nice to be able to do it, and obviously I'm going to give this picture to the owner of the dog just because I can. It'd just be a nice thing to do. So yeah, I want to thank you very much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you have any plans to do something similar, or you've probably already done it by now actually, for this month's Upcrate battle. As I said, I've had great fun. I just love working in graphite, and I could literally sit here all day and keep going and keep going and keep going the way I would if I was doing a commission. But yeah, time constraints and all that jazz. Anyway, it is Sunday, so there's new stuff up on the shop today. You can head down to the website, and the link for the website is in the description of the video, and you can go and take a gander. There are some pencils and things that have gone in today as well, so if you are more of a pencil person, I thought that might be a bit more in keeping with the theme. And yeah, that's great guys, thank you very much. Please look after each other, stay safe, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you back in the cave on Thursday for another video. Bye for now everyone.